Genres have a purpose. When promoting the film, the genre plays a key role. During the trailer, the producers will want to ensure that the audience will be able to tell what genre the film is. People often go see films because they love that genre. The question is, what makes sci-fi wonderful? The best science fiction at its heart is about people. We identify the genre based on its discovery of existing and future technologies, systems, and situations. But what if those technologies, systems, and situations really do is show us to ourselves? When we look at ourselves in unfamiliar situations, interacting with unfamiliar surroundings, like in science fiction, we gain a new insight of humans. Every genre has its power and flaws, but what draws me to sci-fi is the new talent to develop realities by manipulating moments or technology or society to create something bizarre yet justified in what we know. We get to experiment with compassion and guess about the what ifs, like what if we created artificial intelligence, what if we met alien life. Each film begins with questions like these, and as we progress, so does our answer. Every so often AI is brutal and triggering, sometimes it's warm and caring, where other genres inherit their worlds. Great sci-fi creates worlds that are pure and endless when dealing with technologies and realities we don't fully comprehend. How we improve that understanding is critical so that what may seem impractical now can simply be understood by the audience. And this happens by supplying the world with some small targeted elements and avoiding something that looks stylish just because that world allows it to exist. The elements of mise-en-scene can easily be picked out in Blade Runner. It is essentially makes up the entirety of the film. For example, the lighting, costume, set design, different shot angles, and diegetic and non-diegetic sound. Mise-en-scene creates the world to which the audience has been transported to. Mise-en-scene is to make the world that the audience is seeing become real. In the world memorized by climate change and overpopulation in Blade Runner, we see small details like this, like the seawall or the off-world insights and the rising significance of natural resources. It's a world that is fleshed out and allows us to actually truly live in it. Things just aren't included to shock or astonish us with virtual reality. It is very crucial in sci-fi. It exists to astound or move the plot forward rather than being part of the life of this world. The technology doesn't come up later in the film, even if it would solve a lot of issues, and it makes you speculate what the actual rules are. Sci-fi technology can impress without seeming unnatural. In Valerian, the city of 1,000 planets, the futuristic technology is supposed to be common. Our characters have seen it all before prior, but it seems like the film is actually trying to show it off, so it doesn't feel like the world our characters live in. Compare that to the world of Her, made in 2013, where all the characters and the technology seems very natural, and none of it tries to sway you, and it just is a part of that world, and our characters just happen to live in it. It's those characters we use to explore those worlds, which is just as important as the world itself. They're the ones that frame how we preserve what we're seeing. When a character is familiar with the world and its rules, they act as our guide to ground us and offer us a sense of normality to what we're seeing. When they're good, we get characters like Judge Dredd. Listen to this interview from the set of Star Wars where Mark Hamill talks about the direction that George Lucas gave him on directing the cosmos of Star Wars and the character who's familiar with it.
I never considered myself well-read in science fiction in fiction, and I'm aware of the writers, Robert Heinlein, and a lot of my friends are into science fiction. I've really enjoyed it in films always, and fantasy. I think really that's one of the reasons I became interested in cinema, because of films like King Kong, Forbidden Planet. It really is my favorite genre of them all, and I think that's why I'm so excited to be in a film like this, because if I could pick any subject, this would be it. And I think that Star Wars is really more than science fiction. It's a wonderful romantic fantasy story like Wizard of Oz or any of those. So to me, it's more than science fiction.
Have you found creating a character out of core fantasy world where you can't draw on your own history has been harder for you?
Well, really, I think that's one of the things that George the director really wants us to do is play it exactly as if you were doing a story about a farm boy in Nebraska and not on Tatooine. You know, I don't react like, oh my gosh, here's a robot and he's walking, he's talking. It's like a cow would be. And you know, so it's just the opposite, really. It's all these bizarre characters and semi-human, these humanoids are the norm. So really, it's the hardest thing is trying to keep it very just off the cuff and very normal.
George Lucas had a great sense in how familiar characters should relate with the world around them. The basic lesson is what shocks us about the world shouldn't shock our characters. If certain characters aren't suited, it's because they aren't a good guide for that world. In Divergent, that's also the problem. And early on in Divergent, take Beatrice for example. We experience the world through her character who exists outside. How can Beatrice be our guide to that world if she doesn't belong in it? The reason Luke works in Star Wars and Beatrice doesn't is because Luke allows us to live in the Star Wars universe, while Beatrice lives outside of hers. Not all characters have to be our familiar guides, though. What about when the world we need to explore is as exotic to us as it is to them? These characters experience the world in union with the audience. They ask questions we think, and the decisions we hope is made. Makeup is used effectively in Divergent to suit all the different characters. Dauntless, for example, which inspires courage and bravery. In The Matrix, the theme is freedom. The question asked by the writers Larry and Andy Wazowski is freedom possible? I've read the April 8th, 1996 draft of their script and looked at the film too. The theme of freedom is discovered in both, but presented with more doubt and sensitivity in the film. I think the best example for this type of character would be Neo from The Matrix 1999. The main protagonist. Neo is thrown into this world and adapts to it. His journey explores and teaches us the rules and natural ways. He is freaked out, but we would be too. This excites us, and while his reactions may not always agree with the audience, he still manages to interact with the world and retain some lessons learnt along the way. Unfamiliar characters don't always fit. They aren't going into the world they live in is basically for nothing. Unexpectedly, we see this issue arise in sci-fi film Jupiter Ascending 2015. We can see the parallels where Jupiter fails but Neo achieves. Audience choose to go see a film just like Neo chooses to take the lead in The Matrix. But Jupiter isn't given that same choice. While Neo tries to deal with this new reality he's challenged with, Jupiter doesn't seem to be bothered at all with even the existence of alien life. As Neo gains familiarity with this world, he reaches from needing to be saved by others to recruiting others, while Jupiter is saved by other characters throughout the entire film. The ending of The Matrix, Neo flourishes in both worlds, where Jupiter is still back to square one. We are always surrounded by images and text that are supposed to trigger reactions. Stuart Hall argues that though media is encoding with one meaning, each of us interacts with our media in different ways. For sci-fi to prosper, the genre must strike a very difficult balance. The world must be creative, exciting, and new, yet natural and consistent. Sci-fi genre needs to give us characters that explore that world correctly. Science fiction genre confronts the audience to live in a new realism, and in that way we reminisce about our own. Sci-fi can really make you think when directed right.